All right, we're in chapter 21, verse 9 in our Bible study now. A description of the New Jerusalem. And it says, There came unto me one of the seven angels, which had the seven vials full of the last seven plagues, and talked with me, saying, Come hither, I will show thee the bride, the Lamb's wife. Then one of the seven angels, the one possessing the seven bowls, the ones full of the seven plagues, the last plagues, came and spoke with me, saying, Come here, I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb. One of the angels of chapter 16, who had poured out the bowl of wrath on the earth, then invited John to see the New Jerusalem as a bride. Come hither, I will show thee the bride, the Lamb's wife. The Lamb's wife is described here as the new city of Jerusalem. This magnificent city is where the bride of Christ, the church, will live forever. And he carried me away in the Spirit to a great high mountain, and showed me the great city, the holy Jerusalem, descending out of heaven from God. Then he carried me away in the Spirit upon a mountain, great and high, and showed me the city, the holy Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God. So John is in the Spirit. Notice this, not physically, but in the Spirit. He's still on the island of Patmos, but he's being swept away here in the Spirit to a great high mountain where he could have a vantage point of this new Jerusalem descending out of heaven from God. You remember that when Jesus was tempted, he was taken to a high point to see the nations of the world on the pinnacle of the temple. Verse 11 says, Having the glory of God, and her light was like unto a stone most precious, even like a jasper stone, clear as crystal. This city is said to be possessing the glory of God. The radiance of her was like the stone most precious, as a jasper, crystal clear. The most dominant characteristic of this holy city is the shining with the glory of God, God's eternal presence. This personifies God's presence with his people. The glory departed from Old Jerusalem, you remember back in Ezekiel chapter 8 through 11, is now restored to the New Jerusalem in the future. Even though the Shekinah glory left that temple, it did return at times. It returned during any time Jesus stepped into that temple. Expositors have raised a question about the additional revelation of the New Jerusalem beginning in verse 9. Excuse me. Some believe that this section pictures the New Jerusalem as it was suspended over the earth during the millennial reign of Christ. A preferred interpretation, however, is that the passage continues to describe the New Jerusalem as it will be in the eternal state. Obviously now, the city would be much the same in either case, but various indicators seem to relate this to the eternal state rather than to the millennium. The overall impression of the city as a gigantic, brilliant jewel compared to a jasper stone, clear as crystal, indicates its great beauty there. John was trying to describe what he saw and relate it to what might be familiar to his readers. However, it's evident that his revelation transcends anything that he had experienced or we have experienced. The jasper stone today is opaque and not clear. It's found in various colors, and John apparently is referring to the beauty of the stone rather than its particular characteristics. Today, one might describe a city as a beautifully cut diamond, a stone not known as a jewel in the first century. It's all relative to what we know and understand. As in the earlier references to the New Jerusalem as a bride, here again is a city, not a person or a group of people. This is confirmed by the description of the city that follows here in verse 12. And had a great wall, and had 12 gates, and the 12 gates angels, and the names are written thereon, which are the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. John saw a gigantic square city, verse 16, and surrounded by a wall that was great and high, and had 12 gates. The 12 gates bore the names of the 12 tribes of the children of Israel. The number 12 is a prominent number in the city. The city had 12 gates, with 12 angels at those gates, 12 tribes of Israel, 12 foundations, 12 apostles, 12 pearls, 12 kinds of fruit, The wall, 144 cubits, 12 times 12. The height, the width, and the length, 12,000 stanza, about 1,400 miles. On the east, 3 gates. On the north, 3 gates. On the south, 3 gates. On the west, 3 gates. The gates are located in threes on the 4 directions of the compass. The city had walls north, south, east, and west with 3 gates on each side and an angel standing guard at every gate, according to verse 12. This is an entirely different situation from the earthly Jerusalem in the millennium. But if the names of the gates corresponded to the millennial Jerusalem described in Ezekiel 48:31 through 34, the north side from east to west would have the gates named Levi, Judah, and Reuben. On the west side from north to south, Naphtali, Asher, and Gad. On the south side from east to west, Simeon, Issachar, and Zebulun. On the east side from north to south, Joseph, Benjamin, and Dan. In contrast with Revelation 7, verses 5 through 8, where Dan is omitted and Joseph and Manasseh are included, Ezekiel mentioned Dan, but not Manasseh. Okay, so 21:14 says, "And the wall of the city had 12 foundations, and in them the names of the 12 apostles of the Lambs. 12 foundations of stone under the walls, named for the 12 apostles." The inclusion of the names of the 12 tribes of Israel and the 12 apostles in the foundation and gates of the city indicate that both Jewish and Gentile believers will all be part of the family of God and share eternity as one. Although it would seem that the Jews are distinct from the church during the millennium, they will all be one as children of the living God for eternity. In other words, there's going to be no difference now. We're eternally saved. We're eternally here in the city. Now, the names of the 12 apostles. Now, we could really talk about this for a long time. Who is the 12th apostle going to be named? Is it Paul or is it going to be Matthias? We have 13 here when you take on Matthias. So who's the 12th one? I'm going to tell you. I don't know. But it's interesting to think about. I would probably, if it's just me guessing, my guess is Paul because of what he did. But if we were meant to know, you know what? God would have told us. We just know that the 12 apostles are named in those foundations. Verse 15 and 16. "And he that talked with me had a golden reed to measure the city, and the gates thereof, and the wall thereof. And the city lieth foursquare, and the length is as large as the breadth, and measured the city with the reed 12,000 furlongs. And the length and the breadth and the height of it are equal." So the city is laid out in a square, roughly 1,500 miles in length, width, and height. That's a pretty good sized city. And the angel measured the city with a golden reed. It's a measuring rod of gold. It's about 10 feet in length. And the city is 12,000 furlongs in length, width, and that's approximately 1,400 miles or so on each side. We can't be exactly dead on accurate because we're not exactly sure of the length of the furlong. Was it 12 feet, 9 feet, whatever, but it's close. But it's tremendous as this dimension is. The amazing fact is also that it's 1,400 miles high. 1,400 miles wide, 1,400 miles high, 1,400 miles long. That is, wow, that's pretty big. And the size indicates that each border is approximately 1,400 to 1,500 miles in length. So the dimensions of the city would be equal to an area from the eastern shore of the U.S. to the Mississippi River on one side and from the Canadian border to the Gulf of Mexico on the other. To me, that gives me a much better idea of how big this city is. Yeah, that's big. If you've ever taken a trip just to drive from here to the Mississippi River, it's a long way. And then from the Canadian border down to the Gulf, that's a large size. And this great size will afford actually sufficient space for the habitation of saints for all history. Some commentators want to argue that this city, is it a pyramid or is it a cube? Well, I think it's pretty clear. The description says it's a cube. It's foursquare. I know a lot of people think that there's some mystic power in a pyramid. Well, I don't care if there is or not. God doesn't need mystic power. And the description is pretty well clear to me. And verse 17 says, and he measured the wall thereof 144 cubits, according to the measure of man, that is, of the angel. We don't know what the dimensions spoken of here are, the wall thickness or height. Though measured by the angel, it is human measurement standard. The wall measured 144 cubits. 144 and 4 cubits. And the building of the wall of it was jasper, and the city was pure gold, like unto clear glass. This to me is an amazing description. You know, the wall material is jasper, the city is made of pure gold, thin and transparent. That's the best way I think he can describe it. It says the city was pure gold, like unto glass. I've never seen gold that way. I'm going to see a lot of colors and a lot of things I've never seen when I get there. The reference to the measure of man simply means that though the angel is using the rod, he is using human dimensions. So we'll know what's going on. And John gazed at the wall, and he said it's always made of jasper. The city was made of pure gold, like unto clear glass. And again, John was using the language of appearance. For apparently both jasper and gold different from the metals that we know today. But then again, what are we going to see when we get there? We get to heaven, we're going to see colors and things we've never seen before. And so the description is probably pretty amazing. It's going to be pretty amazing to see. In verse 11, the jasper was translucent. And here in verses 18 and 21, the gold is clear as glass. To me, that's amazing. Verse 19, and the foundation of the wall of the city was garnished with all manner of precious stones. The first foundation was jasper, the second sapphire, the third, whatever that is, I can't pronounce it, the fourth an emerald, the fifth a sardox, the sixth a sardis, the seventh crystallite, the eighth beryl, the ninth topaz, the 10th Christophos, the 11th jacinth, and the 12th an amethyst, the foundation of precious stones. And the 12 gates were 12 pearls. Every several gate was one pearl, and the street of the city was pure gold, as it were transparent glass. Wow, 12 gates made of 12 pearls. I can't imagine, I'm getting out of order here, but I cannot imagine a pearl that big. You know, we think of pearls as a little bitty marble shaped, but something big enough as a gate of a city. So the decoration of the foundation, with the apostles' names inscribed on them, include 12 stones. They involve different color. The color of the jasper is not identified. The sapphire was probably blue. Another one that's blue with white stripes in it. The emerald is bright green. The sardox is red and white. Crystallite, sometimes called a sardis, is usually ruby red. Sometimes has an amber or a honey type color to it. Another stone coupled with jasper reflected the glory of God. The crystallite is a golden color, probably different from the modern crystallite stone, which is pale green. Beryl is sea green. Topaz is a transparent yellow green. There's also a green, and there's also a violet color and a purple. And so you put these all together, you've got a rainbow type color in those beautiful array of colors there in those foundations. And then we get to the gate again, the single pearls. I don't know how big this gate is. One big pearl. I know what pearl looks like. You know, that's incredible to think about. And the city, of course, was streets of the city pure gold, but they're transparent as glass again. While the beauty of the city may have had symbolic meaning, no clue is given as to the precise interpretation of it. Since it's reasonable to assume that the saints are going to dwell in the city, it's best to take the city as a literal future dwelling place of saints and angels. I've often wondered about that. When you get to heaven, but now in the city you're going to be walking down the street talking to Moses or David or Aaron and angels, and wow, what a city. Verse 22 says, "And I saw no temple therein, for the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are the temple of it." No temple. Both the Lord and the Lamb are the temple. See, there's no need for a temple in heaven to provide means for man to have fellowship with God. He's there. Because of Jesus' sacrificial death on the cross, sin will not exist there. Oh, can you imagine living somewhere where there's no sin, no pain, no trouble? And God and the Lamb are the temple of the eternal city. So this clearly emphasizes the deity of Christ as equal in essence to that of God the Father. Now we're closing in on the end of the chapter. These last verses. "And the city had no need of the sun, neither of the moon to shine in it, for the glory of God did lighten it, and the Lamb is the light thereof. And the nations of them which are saved shall walk in the light of it, and the kings of the earth do bring their glory and honor unto it, and the gates of it shall not be shut at all by day, for there shall be no night there, and they shall bring the glory and honor of the nations into it. And there shall in no wise enter into anything that defileth, neither whatsoever worketh abomination, or maketh a lie, but they which are written in the Lamb's book of life." There's going to be no filth in the New Jerusalem. The Lord and the Lamb are going to illuminate the city. From the fact that the nations, that's the Gentiles, will be in the city, as well as Israel and the church, it's evident that the city is the dwelling place of the saints of all ages, the angels, and of God himself. The description of the heavenly Jerusalem in Hebrews chapter 12 itemizes all that are mentioned here and adds the spirits of righteous men made perfect, which would include all other saints not specifically mentioned here. So John learned that the gates of the city will never be shut. To me, that pictures eternal security. You're never locked out. Once we're there, we're there. And because God's glory will be present continually, there'll be no night there. Glory and honor of the nations will be in the city, and everything that is impure, shameful, or deceitful is excluded. The inhabitants will be only those whose names are written in the Lamb's book of life. It's interesting that in the 6 references to the book of life in Revelation, only this one, it's the Lamb's. Though the description of the city does not answer all questions concerning the eternal state, the revelation given to John describes a beautiful, glorious future for all who put their trust in the living God. And I'm going to stop there, and I'll hopefully either next Wednesday or the Wednesday after we're back Sunday evening, be back in church and pick up in chapter 22, and we'll be finished here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I'll close in a word of prayer. Father, I thank you for this brief time of study today, and pray that as it goes out over the internet, people will listen and get excited about that eternal state and prepare themselves to take part in it. To take part in it, they need to come to Jesus for salvation. And I pray that we will have open and receptive hearts to those listening, and they'll come before it is eternally too late. Be with us and guide us to have a wonderful week ahead, Lord, for we do pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Should pray for more memory.